Okay, so now in this part, both of our papers are dry. You can see that this one really curled up. That might happen to you, not a big deal. It'll tame back down as you work with it, okay? Now you can see that this is my night sky one. It dried a lot lighter, but we're gonna layer over top of that here in a second. So the first one that we're going to go back to is this atmospheric perspective one, okay? And like I said, it looks so light as if you can't even see a color, but that's because we're gonna layer and work our way forward on here. So we're gonna create a little mountain, and we're actually going to start with the very lightest colors first and layer on top, okay? So I have my colors here. I wanna do my best to use kind of that same blue-green color as I used before. So I have a little bit of that color still mixed here, but I think I'll need to mix up some more. So a little bit of water, putting more blue, then green. Oh, I need to add some more blue to that for sure. A little too. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by adding in a mountain range kind of here at the very back, okay? You can do this in a variety of ways. Doesn't need to look exactly like mine. Then what you are going to do is you are just lightly going to fill all the way down to here. We do not want this to be any darker than what we have here, okay? It's very important that we don't start off too dark. Otherwise, you are not going to be able to complete the rest of this because we're trying to get the light layers in the background. Okay, so now that that is done, I'm just going to let this dry, okay? It's really important that we don't go back over this until it's dry. So I'm gonna set this one off to the side. And now, while that one's drying, I'm going to bring back my night sky, okay? Now, we're gonna do that same thing with the wet on wet like we did the first time, but we're going to layer over top of it. So I'm actually going to start this by taking my little spray bottle of water and spritzing the paper. And then even though there's paint down on here, I'm still going to treat this as if I'm doing wet and wet again, okay? So I'm actually going to start by kind of getting the paper wet again, but we cannot scrub it. Remember, we don't want this nasty problem to happen. Okay, so I will speed this up so you can kind of see how this will work and how we can layer on top. Okay, so now you can see that there's quite a bit of a difference on this one just by adding another layer to it. We're gonna let this one dry and we'll get back to that one when it's entirely dry because we might even do another layer on this one, okay? So this will be your part 2. So I'm gonna put this one off to the side. I'm gonna bring this one back. Now, this one feels pretty dry, so I think I'm ready for my next layer. So here, I already have my color mixed up. And this time I'm going to make another little mountain range, but I'm actually going to make the color just a smidge, tiny bit darker. So just adding in a little bit more blue and a tiny bit more green. Okay, so now I'm gonna do kind of that same thing, but notice as these mountains here, they have a little bit of a variety. So we wanna do that too. So let's go ahead and we're gonna create another range. And so this one I'm gonna start off a little bit lower, but I'm just gonna start by painting a line. Okay, so I have my line painted there, and I'm gonna do that same thing as painting all the way down. Okay, so now I'm just going to let it dry, and we can start to see the different layers of the mountains there. So at this point, both of my paintings are wet and there's nothing else I can do on them. So this would be a point that I am at a stopping point to just let them dry before we can move on to the next step.